Attention men of our era. You carry upon your shoulders the weight of a guilt that is not entirely yours, but which has become the trademark of our contemporary masculinity. Take interest in this reflection, for it may free you from invisible chains that have imprisoned your masculine essence for decades. Awaken to the reality that modern society has transformed man into an eternal beggar of apologies, a being who walks constantly with head bowed, assuming responsibilities that transcend his own individual existence. This is an issue that affects everyone from the young university student in Miami to the experienced executive in Seattle, passing through the rural worker in rural Texas. Male guilt has infiltrated every aspect of our lives like a silent toxin, corroding our capacity for leadership, our self-confidence, and our very identity as men. Action is necessary to understand this phenomenon and find the path back to our essential nature, to that inner strength that our ancestors knew well, and that we, modern men, urgently need to rediscover.
Contemporary man has inherited a disproportionate historical burden, being constantly held responsible for centuries of injustices, wars, and oppressions that he, individually, never committed. This collective responsibility has created a toxic atmosphere where every man feels obligated to carry the sins of his ancestors, as if he were personally guilty of the actions of past generations. I observe in my philosophical practice how young men in their 20s in cities like Denver and Atlanta come to me carrying deep shame simply for having been born male, as if their very existence were an offense to the world. This systematic guilt assignment has deep roots in ideological movements that, while bringing important advances to society, also created a devastating side effect: the demonization of masculinity itself. The result is a generation of men who apologize for existing, who walk on tiptoes in their own lives, fearing to express opinions, assume leadership, or simply be authentic in their masculinity. I see fathers in Chicago who are afraid to educate their male children with firmness, fearing being labeled as machists or oppressors. Businessmen in New York who self-censor in meetings, avoiding expressing their convictions to avoid being misinterpreted. This is the suffocating reality in which we live. A world where masculinity has become synonymous with guilt, where being a man means being constantly in debt to society. Stoic philosophy teaches us that we cannot control the actions of others, neither past nor present, but only our own choices and reactions. Accepting guilt for acts we did not commit is a fundamental violation of this ancestral wisdom. Before continuing, if this message is already making sense to you and has blessed you, consider supporting this work with a super thanks. Your contribution allows us to continue bringing this essential reflection to more men who need to hear these truths. Modern media plays a devastating role in perpetuating male guilt, constantly bombarding men with narratives that portray them as potential predators, natural oppressors, or simply as defective versions of human beings who need to be corrected to become acceptable. Every day we watch movies, series, and television programs where men are systematically ridiculed, presented as incompetent, violent, or morally inferior. Social media has amplified this phenomenon exponentially, creating echo chambers where any expression of traditional masculinity is immediately attacked and deconstructed. Men in cities like Portland and Phoenix tell me how they feel constantly monitored in their social interactions, weighing every word, every gesture, fearing that any manifestation of their masculine nature will be interpreted as problematic. This hypervigilance has created a generation of neurotic, anxious, and deeply unhappy men who have lost connection with their own essence. Constant exposure to these negative narratives about masculinity creates a toxic psychological state where men internalize these criticisms and begin to see themselves through the lens of guilt and inadequacy. The result is a castrated masculinity, a domesticated and harmless version of what it means to be a man, a pathetic caricature of what our ancestors understood as masculine strength. Modern education significantly contributes to the formation of this male guilt mentality, starting from the earliest years of school life, where boys are constantly reprimanded for their natural tendencies of competitiveness, adventure, and assertiveness. The current educational system was designed to favor characteristics traditionally associated with the feminine: passive collaboration, conformity, quietness, while systematically punishing natural masculine traits. Teachers in Boston tell me how they are pressured to control boys' behavior, medicalizing their natural energy with labels like ADHD, when in reality they are just being normal boys. This early repression of masculinity creates adults who carry deep shame about their own nature, men who learned early that their natural inclinations are problematic and must be suppressed. Universities across the country have become ideological re-education camps where young men are bombarded with theories that teach them to see their own masculinity as toxic and harmful. Engineering students in San Francisco tell me how they feel obligated to apologize for choosing masculine careers, as if their technical competence were an aggression against the world. This educational atmosphere creates insecure professionals, hesitant leaders, and men who constantly doubt their own capabilities and instincts. Stoic philosophy teaches us that virtue knows no gender, but also reminds us that denying our essential nature is a sure path to unhappiness and inner disorder. The critical point of this discussion lies in understanding that accepting this collective guilt not only harms men individually, but also destroys the social fabric as a whole, creating an unbalanced society where the masculine half of the population lives in constant state of apology and self-repression. A society that punishes and shames its men is a society that chooses decline, for it removes from circulation exactly those qualities: leadership, protection, provision, courage, that are essential for the maintenance and progress of any civilization. I observe how entire cities in states like Arizona and Colorado suffer from the absence of strong masculine leadership, with men who have been conditioned to retreat from challenges, to seek constant approval instead of making firm and necessary decisions. This masculinity crisis manifests in growing rates of male depression, suicide, addictions, and an epidemic of men who have simply given up on actively participating in society. When a culture systematically diminishes and shames its men, it does not create a more just society. It creates a dysfunctional society where no one is willing to take real responsibility for progress and protection of those we love. The time to wake up is now, before we completely lose the essence of what makes us true men. Liberation from this toxic guilt does not mean denying legitimate responsibilities or backtracking on important social achievements, but rather refusing to carry the weight of crimes we did not commit and shame for a nature we did not choose, but which we must honor with integrity and purpose. The Stoic man understands that his strength does not lie in the subjugation of others, but in mastery of himself, in the ability to lead by example, to protect without oppressing, to be firm without being cruel. This is an urgent call for you, contemporary man, to stop apologizing for existing and start living with the dignity that your masculine nature deserves. Look at yourself in the mirror and see not a potential oppressor, but a protector, a builder, a leader who has genuine responsibilities to his family, his community, and his own moral development. The false guilt you carry does not make you a better man. It makes you a broken man, and broken men do not build prosperous civilizations nor healthy families. The time to rise is now, to assume your legitimate place in the world not as a beggar of forgiveness, but as a man of character who understands his true responsibilities and embraces them with courage and determination. This is your most important choice. Continue living on your knees or finally stand up and walk with the dignity that was always your birthright.